the 4 stages of problem awareness. Now, this video is going to be really important for learning how to identify a problem in your life and solve it. And it's going to help you to increase your overall clarity in life and well-being. Now, there's actually 5 stages, but the 5th stage has a lot to do with business, and really this whole model has a lot to do with business. And I'm just trying to make this stuff very practical in your life, something that you can relate to. Now, the first stage is unaware. And this is very interesting because it's already problematic that we're not aware of our problems. And I actually have 32 problems written down that I'm going to be explaining. And we typically don't identify many of these things as problems, or we might just not even notice that we have these problems because we are just at this first stage. Now, I'm going to be giving you a little bit of a detailed explanation of this first stage. So, unawareness. In this stage, an individual is not aware that a problem exists. They may not notice the issue or may not recognize it as a problem. Unawareness can occur for a variety of reasons, such as a lack of information, distractions, or a sense of complacency. Individuals in this stage may not see the need for change or improvement and may not feel motivated to take action. So a lot of really the key parts of the stage are just being distracted, being complacent, and an overall lack of information. I can even put a lack of motivation. So a lot of this stuff is related to a person's beliefs about a situation, what they're choosing to see, their emotional states, and really the amount of clarity that they have in a particular situation. Moving on to this second stage, this is aware. So this is when you're beginning to become aware of the problem. Now I'm going to give you a little bit of a detailed explanation on this once again. So in this stage, an individual becomes aware that a problem exists. They may start to notice the symptoms of the problem and begin to understand the impact it has on their life. Awareness can occur through personal experience, feedback from others, or exposure to information about the issue. Individuals in this stage may start to feel a sense of discomfort or dissatisfaction with the current situation, but may not yet understand the underlying causes of the problem. And this video is helping you to move from unaware to aware. And then I'm going to be giving you a bunch of tips for moving into this stage and then moving into this stage. So right now, I am making you aware. And this stage is all about, of course, noticing symptoms, being exposed to information, and actually feeling a sense of discomfort with the present circumstance because there is something off with it. There's a problem that is unidentified and needs to be solved, but we might not understand exactly how to solve it or a lot of the underlying problem or underlying causes to the problem. And a lot of our problems, I'll just say personal problems for now, even any problem, whatever, I'll throw out any problem that we have, any sort of complicated problem that we have. A lot of the solutions that we might have for it might not actually work in the way that we would like to. Because when it comes to solving problems, a problem does not just exist on its own. A problem is part of a larger network, a larger system that is full of interrelated parts. So for example, if we have, let's say, an economic problem, we probably also have an educational problem, we probably also have health problems, we probably have mental health problems, and all of this stuff is actually related to one another. If we don't have clarity in our personal life, we probably have health problems, probably forms of mental health problems, physical health. We might have other forms of confusion in other areas of our life. We'll probably have relationship problems, career problems if we just lack clarity. So from one problem, this actually branches out to affect various other areas of life because everything is actually very interconnected and we just have to actually make these connections. So right now I'm just exposing you to information. The third stage is actually understanding. Now I'm going to give you a detailed explanation of this stage. So in this stage, an individual starts to understand the underlying causes of the problem. They may research the issue, seek advice from others, and try to understand the problem in greater detail. Understanding can help individuals identify potential solutions to the problem and develop a plan of action. Individuals in this stage may also start to feel more hopeful and motivated to address the issue. And a lot of the stuff related to this stage has a lot to do with research, advice, and identifying potential solutions. And when it comes to this stage, I want to urge you to be open-minded, to read books, to actually, like you're doing right now, watch videos, and not only seek advice from others, although that's important, but seek advice from the right people. Seek advice from people who are also open, mentally flexible, who do research, who are actively developing themselves, things like this. You want to get advice and feedback from the right people, because you can go to anyone for advice or feedback, but they might not really get what they're actually saying or how to actually properly assist you, and they might not even care. So you definitely want to watch out who you actually approach if you are asking for advice, what their biases are, how they're viewing the situation, what their judgments are, what their beliefs are, how they feel about it, what their underlying intentions might be, what their motivations might be, things like this. So understanding has a lot to do with gathering information and organizing it in a way so that you can get a bigger picture understanding of the situation, and also relate it to a lot of other things. So when it comes to solving a problem, like I said, we need to think holistically. We have to think in a big picture sense. We have to go broad and we also have to go deep. So we have to go deep on the specific problem that we have, but we also have to go broad in the sense that we have to figure out a lot of the other things that this is connected to. So when it comes to, let's say, just something very relatable, getting personal clarity, we can really begin to go broad with this and go into multiple dimensions of our life. Is it because we don't have satisfying relationships and we kind of are hanging out with the wrong people and this is actually diminishing our clarity? Is it because we don't have a proper diet? Is it because we're not meditating? Is it because we're not journaling? We don't value mental well-being and self-awareness or emotional intelligence? Is it because we don't exercise? So we can easily see how any one of these factors, and really all of those factors, are going to contribute to how clear we are in our life. So it's not a very simple thing. We actually need to make connections between various fields and various really things. Just things in general. We got to make a lot of connections to what the problem is and what it branches out and what it is connecting to. So I would urge you to not only just watch YouTube videos, but actually buy books. A really good book that can help you with this kind of stuff is this book right here, Systems Thinking for Social Change. Thinking in systems has a lot to do with being very holistic in your approach, seeing multiple perspectives, being mentally flexible, and seeing how one part of a system affects another part of a system. So we can think of your life as a system. We can think of you as a system. We can think of how your social life affects how ambitious you are in your career, and how that affects your ability to exercise, and how that affects your overall emotional state from day to day, and how that affects whether or not you meditate or do yoga or stretch and whatever, and the kinds of food you eat. And all of this stuff intersects and connects. And it's really important to actually just slowly make connections between various things and not be very narrow-minded in how we think about problems, because problems, like I've said too many times now, are very complicated, complex, nuanced, and actually branch out and touch a bunch of other things. So when we affect one thing, we actually need to have a more broad sense of like what we're actually doing. Like if I move this, like is it going to affect this or that or that? So it's like when you push a domino, like dominoes, when you push one over and then they all fall. So it's being able to see the consequences of your actions and how that actually branches out and touches various things, and actively figuring that out. So that's the understanding phase. Has a lot to do with developing a plan of action and research, and being able to not only just brainstorm on your own, but also go out and actually actively seek information from people who have solved the problem that you're facing, or just gather various perspectives from a lot of different resources so that you can figure out a solution for maybe your own unique problem or whatever it is. The fourth stage is action, and I'm going to give you a detailed explanation of it. So in this final stage, an individual takes action to solve the problem. This could involve implementing a solution themselves, seeking help from others, or taking steps to prevent the problem from occurring in the future. Actions can help individuals feel a sense of control and empowerment, and can lead to improvements in their quality of life. However, taking action can also be challenging and require effort and persistence, especially if the problem is complex or long-standing. And a lot of the problems that we actually face in our life are actually complex and long-standing. Like, you might think that you have, let's say, a very common problem, like anxiety. Okay, this is a perfect one. Now, we can say that, we have anxiety, for example, and we can begin to think of what we're actually doing that contributes to this. Maybe we have, let's say, social anxiety. And we can think of a bunch of stuff in our life that actually contributes to that, like lack of experience socializing would be a perfect one. Another one would be probably not taking care of ourselves in various areas, like not doing the necessary meditation so that we have the self-awareness and overall emotional intelligence to handle anxiety. Or maybe we're not eating well and it's messing up our clarity, which affects our ability to connect with people. And those are just some possible reasons. And really at this action stage, this has a lot to do with not only implementing solutions, but also continuously solving the problem. So I got to frame this properly. It has a lot to do with, of course, I'm looking at effort and persistence, but it has a lot to do with actively implementing various solutions and not being rigidly attached to one particular solution that you might have. So we can take a problem like, let's say, making money. Let's say we want to make more money. And let's say you want to do like online business or something. There are a lot of ways to make money online and set up an online business. And when people tend to find one solution for a problem that they had in their life, they tend to think that they have found the best solution, or like the one that truly works. And we have to get that people are complicated, multifaceted, and very different from one another, and that what worked for you might not work for them, and vice versa. What works for them might not work for me. So from this understanding stage, we can get a lot of research and various solutions, but this action stage has a lot to do with actually implementing the solutions that work best for the specific situation and just overall context that we're in. And action has a lot to do with preventing these problems from happening in the future. So actually getting to the root of the problem so that this stuff doesn't continuously occur. And now I have 32 problems that a lot of people might not really identify as problems. And this is going to get very interesting. So the first one is unhealthy habits. And this is kind of obvious. We can obviously say unhealthy habits are a problem. But now when we look at what unhealthy habits are, or I give you very interesting examples of them, it's like, oh, that I didn't really think of it like that. So a very interesting one is eating when you're bored. Why do you eat? Do you eat food because you're hungry? And when you're eating, do you overeat? And also, are you actually eating the stuff that your body needs? Are you actually eating just what you need and nothing more? So when you actually look at your eating habits, you have to look at also the emotions behind them that are driving them. So are you just anxious and overeating? Are you bored and then you want to go get food? And to actually see this pattern in your life, it's a pattern, it's something continuously happening, and identify that this is a problem and I have to stop. I got to figure out how to stop this. This is something that most people don't even really think of or notice when they are bored and going to the refrigerator. All that's really on their mind is how they want food, which is kind of silly. It's kind of dumb. It's kind of just very unconscious. I'm definitely guilty of this. I've done this quite a lot. So I'm not judging, but nonetheless, it's stupid. It's very unintelligent. It's dumb. It's just downright ridiculous. And the fact that we have very little idea on how to actually solve such a basic problem that's related to our well-being is embarrassing. The fact that we have little to no education on such a thing is just an embarrassment, really. So also not exercising regularly, not getting enough sleep, things like this, eating poorly, like I just said, not taking the various steps to improve mental health, like meditation, which is very necessary for mental health. It's very important. It's a very profound practice. Journaling, like doing this stuff regularly, like journaling, meditating, reading, looking into psychotherapy, looking into emotional intelligence, this kind of stuff. And without a lot of this kind of work, really our psychological well-being and our emotional well-being will actually suffer. And that is connected to our physiological well-being, our relationships, so our social well-being, our career, so our financial well-being. So we can see how all this stuff is very connected. Communication issues. So individuals may not realize that they actually are not communicating effectively with other people. That's an interesting one. Self-criticism, time management as well. Procrastination, financial problems. That one is fairly obvious because money is so deeply valued by a lot of people, and it's kind of everywhere we go. It's kind of really just planted in our mind that we need to make money. Another good one is boundaries. This one is very interesting. So this has a lot to do with letting people impose themselves on you and also you doing it to other people. So really, this is a tricky one. If you have boundary problems, which basically everyone does to varying degrees, but most people are very unaware of this one. Most people are, when it comes to boundaries, they're right here. Most people let themselves get pushed upon and let their boundaries get violated. And they also violate the boundaries of others, which is also problematic. It's, I want to say, equally problematic. But I don't know, it depends on the context, depends on the situation. But really, both of these are going to screw up any relationship that you're in, whether it's with coworkers, friends, intimate relationships, your boss, or whatever. So negative self-talk is another one. Perfectionism, burnout, various relationship patterns, like why you're attracting the kinds of people that you're attracting. Emotional intelligence. So this one's very interesting. So people might not be aware of why they actually have the feelings that they have. They might not be able to actually feel the feelings that they have. They might feel kind of numb in their body. They don't feel many sensations. They feel tense and rigid. Their gut is tense, their shoulders raised. And they don't even really notice this. They have trouble regulating their emotions and they have trouble understanding the emotions of other people. So emotional intelligence is very broad and complicated. And really, we live in an emotionally unintelligent world. Deep emotional intelligence is very rare. This is not something that you just have because, you know, you're like, for example, older and experienced, or it's not something that you have because you have maybe even done a little bit of meditation, or it's not something that you have because you've read 1 or 2 books on it. Emotional intelligence is developed by getting various areas of your life together. It's, once again, holistic. You actually need to get your relationships in order, eat the right food, exercise properly, learn how to get your finances in order, learn how to actually actively feel your body. There's a lot of skills that go into emotional intelligence, and there's a lot of practices as well that increase emotional intelligence that need to be actively done. Like a practice, for example, is something that you do. It's something that you take action on. And in order to improve emotional intelligence, you have to intentionally take action on it. It's like if you want to become a master at tennis, you have to intentionally go to the tennis court with your racket and, you know, your whole outfit and the ball and face people or do whatever practices you have to do. Same thing with emotional intelligence. If you want to master emotional intelligence and be emotionally intelligent, you need to actively and intentionally do something about it. And if you aren't, you're probably emotionally unintelligent, because why would you have deep emotional intelligence if you don't care enough to read 1 book on it or do any practices? It's not just gonna like fall into your lap. It's not like you're not gonna have a deep understanding of why your emotions work the way they do, or the emotions of other people, or how to uncover repressed emotions which you have. Really, you're just going to be emotionally unintelligent, and that's kind of, it sounds brutal, but that's the case. You need to actually develop this. This is like a muscle that needs to be actively worked on. You need to go to the gym and lift weights to build muscle. Emotional intelligence is the same thing. You need to go to the emotional intelligence gym, which is, let's say, the meditation cushion, or examining your diet, or examining the various relationships that you're in, or whatever it is. Increasing self-awareness. You need to actually do a lot of these things in order to increase that. So some things that can help with increasing emotional intelligence are daily meditation. Start with 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it is. This is kind of non-negotiable. Long walks in nature, solo contemplation, journaling, reading books on emotional intelligence, and really learning how to actively get in touch with your body. And by that I mean actively feel and bring awareness into your body continuously and feel the sensations. Feel how tense and rigid and held some places are. People hold up their shoulders and they're locked in that position. People tense their gut and it's locked in that position. And you really got to look at this stuff and be able to identify that it's a problem. You got to notice the symptoms of your lack of emotional intelligence because you're just utterly unaware of it. You're completely distracted. Yeah, I gotta draw this. I just hit this off. So really, when it comes to emotional intelligence, this is where people are at. And most people think they're at here. When it comes to a lot of the problems we have, it's easy to not even realize how delusional and unaware we actually are until someone comes along and starts to really kind of call you out. So you think you're emotionally intelligent, huh? But have you even read 2 books on what that is or what that is? Have you even intentionally decided to do practices to increase that? And really what I'm saying now, it goes for every problem that I'm going to be listing out and any problem that you even have. So right now I'm just making you aware, noticing the symptoms, exposing you to information, and I want you to actually feel the sense of discomfort because it's there. When it comes to emotional intelligence, unless you have very high emotional intelligence, unless you're like here, you know, like you're gonna be struggling to get here. Like the whole point of this stuff is that this is a pain in the ass. This is a struggle. Like this is the whole point of this video is I want you to get the hell out of here and move into here. Because at least that understanding, you're actively researching it. You're actively building a comprehensive conceptual framework on the problem, and then you can begin to actually do stuff in order to solve it. You can implement practices, talk to the right people, figure things out. And then by this stage, you're good. But when you're here and you're so lost in distractions and complacency and a lack of information, and you're barely even aware, this is hell. This is hell. And I'm really just trying to get you out of there, and I'm really trying to just point out that you got to take this kind of stuff seriously. You got to actually actively do something about it. So basically, if you want to actively do something about it, here's a book right here. Here. Like this book by Daniel Goleman. It's literally called Emotional Intelligence. I want you to purchase this book. Like I actually want you to do this whenever you have time. But really, if you don't purchase this book and you're watching this video, I don't know what you're doing. I'm calling you out pretty hard right now, but it would be very wise to actually purchase that book and read it if you would like to increase your emotional intelligence and even begin to think of yourself as an emotionally intelligent person. Moving on, addiction. And addiction is not just like gambling and drugs and alcohol and things like this. Addiction can be addictions to food, addictions to the computer, addictions to, even just anything that distracts you from your well-being, really. Anything that pulls you away from your well-being is going to be problematic. Addictions to whatever, like social media, YouTube, Netflix, checking your email, things like this. Social anxiety, I believe I talked about that one a little bit. Also a lack of purpose. This one is huge. And the majority of people do not have a deep sense of purpose in their life. They do not have various things that they find very meaningful to them and that they can actively work on and find a sense of enjoyment out of. A lot of people are just lacking a deep sense of meaning and purpose. A lot of people are stuck in various distractions, complacency, and just an overall lack of information on how to get out of that kind of situation. So that's really important. Codependency is another one. Forms of identity crisis, and trauma as well. Trauma is a very dramatic word, and really, I want to phrase this right. Everyone has varying degrees of trauma because past experiences have hurt us. We've closed down, we've built up walls, we've built up various forms of defenses and various forms of protection that are completely inauthentic to us, and this stuff actually causes us pain in the long run, but in that short term, it helped us. So we all have varying degrees of trauma, and it's actually important to be able to admit that to yourself, first of all, that the tension in your gut right now, how your abs are always held or how your shoulders raised, this is actually a sign of repressed emotions and past experiences that were overwhelming, that have traumatized you in some kind of way, and you didn't know how to handle the situation, so you repressed it and pushed it away. So at some point, things overwhelmed you, you got very scared, anxious, whatever it was, and you didn't know how to handle it, so you kind of pushed it all away. And that's basically a little bit on how trauma and emotional repression kind of works. I really got to make a whole other video for that. This really isn't the video, but it's very important to actually admit to yourself that you probably have various aspects of yourself that you're completely ignorant of and is actually affecting your current behavior, your relationships, your emotions, the things you do on a day-to-day basis, like when you wake up and check your phone immediately, or the kind of career path that you're picking as well. The next one is mental health. So a lot of people may be struggling with forms of mental health problems like depression, anxiety, even just feeling mentally numb and just mentally dull. So mental health doesn't have to just be like serious depression or like serious anxiety. This can also just feel like just not feeling right in your mind. And that has a lot to do with just feeling dull. Like let's say you eat a lot of garbage food and now your mind feels like foggy and dull. Your mind is not in its healthiest state, we can say. And we have to be able to identify that if we can continuously have brain fog or just some kind of cloudiness in our mind, a lack of clarity of, various forms of a lack of clarity, this is a mental health problem that we actually need to be aware of. And we can notice the symptoms of that and then move into here and then here. A lack of self-care, a lack of boundaries with technology. This one's big nowadays. The lack of boundaries with technology. So this has a lot to do with spending way too much time on your phone, your laptop, or whatever device you actually have, which can, create addiction, decrease productivity, make you kind of depressed, anxious, foggy in your mind, and basically even disrupt sleep patterns. So it's important to actually recognize that spending time on technology is actually not very healthy for you. That you need to actually watch how much time you are spending on Instagram, on all forms of social media, YouTube, on Netflix, watching TV, just even looking at the screen. Like spend how much, like even if it's just like a pretty picture and you're looking at it, like you need to be aware of how much time you're actually spending giving your attention to technology and limit it to a certain amount each day so that it doesn't affect your well-being, even checking your email. And it's really important to actually be honest about this stuff because basically everyone has forms of addiction with technology nowadays because it's just so, it's just so carefully designed to hook you in. It's designed to manipulate how your mind works. It's designed to manipulate your psychology and get you addicted. So it's very hard to actually not have addiction problems with technology nowadays. Difficulty asking for help is another one. Inability to cope with change. That's a big one. Negative self-image problems, cognitive distortion. So this involves individuals not being aware that they might have black and white thinking or, think in very like catastrophic terms, things like that, which can lead to heightened anxiety, things like that. A lack of assertiveness, which is just you can't really assert your needs in certain situations, which can lead you to basically being taken advantage of, or people just being ignorant of your needs, people just not even knowing your needs and just kind of walking on you and not even knowing it because you just didn't tell them. People pleasing is another one. Trust issues, boundaries with work. So basically, this one has a lot to do with just overworking yourself and can really just lead to like forms of burnout and stress. And a lot of people cannot disconnect from their work. And I actually had this problem. I would like focus so much on like self-actualization, self-improvement, reading so many books. Like at one point, if I wasn't reading like 2 books a week, I would actually get kind of frustrated. And then that was a long time ago. But moral of the story is that you need to actually be able to let your work go and just connect with something that has nothing to do with your work and just be able to kind of put your mind at rest. And it's funny because when we have some kind of problem at work and we just let our minds go, we take our attention off of it, often we might have a spontaneous insight that actually solves that problem that we were so stuck on. So really just being able to let this stuff go and focus on, let's say, your relationship or your exercise or well-being, whatever it is, be able to go walk in nature. This stuff, just being able to go and do that is very important, just taking time off of work. Tolerating mistreatment. This one is obviously kind of large. Being trapped in toxic relationships or being taken advantage of, let's say, at work. And difficulties saying no. So when you don't want to do something and you're just a bit too scared to say no and you can't set that boundary. So those are various problems that people might have that they don't even realize are problems. Another one I can throw in there is money. And this is like one that, I don't want you to think I'm an idiot for bringing this up. I know we're all very aware that we have to make money or else how are we going to eat? How are we going to, just have a shelter, a car, do anything, right? We need it to live. But it's not so much just money, it's how we're making that money. Whether it's authentic to us, whether it connects with our values, whether it's something we actually enjoy doing. And it's important to be honest about this stuff. And not only that, but what are the global and just overall environmental consequences to how we make money? And by environment, I don't just mean like, caring about Mother Earth. I mean like caring about everything on Earth. So if I work for, let's say, a company that, is dependent upon workers in a third world country, it's like, how am I actually contributing to that problem by working at that company? Whether I'm the secretary or the janitor even, really it's important to understand that when you are working for a company or just working anywhere at all, you have to look at where they are getting their resources from and understand that any sort of mistreatment or any sort of unethical behavior, you are supporting that by working for that company. And you might not actively in your mind like support it, but by continuously working for that company, you are responsible for that because you are a part of that company. You're a part of what is making that problem possible. And you don't have to like shame yourself or like feel guilty. That's not the point of what I'm saying, but it's important to actually become aware of how a lot of our money is made. And whether, of course, it's authentic to us, whether we're doing something we like, these are kind of almost obvious, all the way to how are my behaviors actually affecting people in other countries, to even whatever, people's well-being. Like I used to work at a grocery store, for example, and I remember I was thinking, this was when I was like 19, I was thinking how I'm actually responsible for people's lack of health because I'm actually working at the grocery store. This is about when I was 19, because I would see them buying Coca-Cola or like just a bunch of unhealthy stuff, and I just realized that like I am contributing to people's health problems by actually working in this place. And it was just very interesting because I was just thinking, I'm like, I don't really think many people really think that thought. They kind of just probably help people with their groceries and then just, go back to whatever the job was. But I was kind of just standing there like what are the actual consequences of my actions and how does this affect various things? And one of my values is well-being and helping people to be well. And it's very difficult to actually, first of all, be well. That's a complicated thing. And second of all, it's actually very hard to actually make money in ways that, help people to be healthy. Even YouTube, for example, I'm going to be able to put advertisements on my videos relatively soon when I hit 1,000 subscribers. And I have to think about the kinds of advertisements that people are going to see, how that affects people's well-being, and maybe if I'm feeding into people's YouTube addiction, which I know I am, And yeah, so it's interesting when you begin to actually look at the consequences of your actions and be honest about the almost evils that you're actually doing. And, you know, by the word evil, I don't, you know, it's not like you don't have to feel guilty, but how you're actually contributing to the world's problems, because we don't really like to think of ourselves as contributing to problems. We like to think of ourselves as like good, caring, loving, empathetic humans who like can do no wrong. We like to look at ourselves as the heroes, but actually there's a lot of things that we're doing that are contributing to systemic global problems and just, you know, problems in general. So it's important to actually care to look at the consequences of our actions at various scales. So at like a personal scale, to like a family, to like the community that you're living in, to your country, to the world at large. And see how your actions actually affect every single one of these. So I guess that's just pretty cool. I'm personally interested in that. And yeah, I hope you are too. So if you guys have any questions at all, let me know in the comment section below. And other than that, take it easy.